We welcome all dear participants. We are starting our webinar and quiz on biodiversity. Now, I request Sri Srinivasulu, Member Secretary, Karnataka State Pollution Control Board, for his welcome note. Sir, it's over to you.
Friends, good morning. Life in sum total of life in its diverse forms living on earth is biodiversity. Life has diversified into different life forms, not by default but by design. The very existence of life on earth depends on its diversity. Not many can appreciate, but the fact of the matter is, unless otherwise, life is existing on this planet in different life forms. It is not going to be existing for very long time. The very existence of life on earth is possible only when it is in diverse forms. It is because different life forms that we see are highly interdependent, interacting with each other in different relations. Either they complement each other, supplement each other, and depend on each other for their very survival. Biodiversity, what we say, provides n number of ecosystem services to human beings and every other creature on this earth. You can just think the air we breathe, the water we drink, the crop we produce, the fire we domesticate for our different life activities. These are all possible only when the Panchabhutas, which we say, are in pure form and they are non-polluted. If these are polluted, they threaten the very survival of human beings on this. Also, it is very important to understand human being who has evolved just few seconds ago in the time scale of universe or time scale of earth, if he thinks he is superior life forms on this earth, he has all the more and moral obligation to respect all his siblings, not for the case of siblings, but for his very existence. If you think that human being can live in isolation on this earth, you are very wrong, because human being can never ever be able to live on this earth in his whole form. For his survival, he has to appreciate, respect, and nurture culture or diversity. This year, when we have this motto of every solution is there in nature, it's a very powerful statement where if you just think, for everything that we do, for everything that we need, for every our nutritional needs, medical needs, recreational needs, cultural needs, any needs that we think of human needs, for everything we'll have to go back to nature for its solutions. And if we don't protect this nature, we will be depriving ourselves with solutions, and that's we're going to face very difficult problems. So friends, let's all pledge on this day to respect and protect nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivasulu, sir, for your welcome note. Now, I request Dr. S.G. Gopalakrishna, Director, Nagarjuna Group of Institutions, for introductory note. Hello, sir. Please continue, sir.
Good afternoon, dear participants. World Environment Day is being celebrated on 5th of June every year. And this year's theme is biodiversity, which is a very unique and befitting theme, I understand. This webinar is being organized across the country. We have received approximately 3,000 participants to this webinar from north to south and east to west in the country. This is a very good initiative from our college. And regarding the World Environmental Day, now we have to take care of the environment. We have to take care of the earth that we live in. If we don't do that, our future generation will suffer. Hence, on this occasion, all of us should take oath that we will contribute and maintain this earth in the way that we have received when we were born and hand it over to our youngsters. This oath every individual and every citizen of this world should take. And we at Nagarjuna College of Engineering and Technology have associated with this webinar, which is a unique webinar being organized and sponsored by the Central Pollution Control Board, Karnataka State Pollution Control Board, and the Prakriti Institute. We are very happy to be associated with these reputed organizations. And on behalf of the Nagarjuna Group of Institutions, I wish this webinar all the best. And on this occasion, I would like to mention that Nagarjuna Group of Institutions started during 1996 with a small number of 20 students and 2 teachers, and today it has grown to 1,000 teachers and 10,000 students. You can imagine the growth of the group of institutions. We have 6 institutions under the umbrella of Nagarjuna Group, and all these institutions are backed by the erstwhile construction company, namely Nagarjuna Construction Company, ably handled and supported and managed by Sri J.V. Rangaraju, the director of the Nagarjuna Construction Company. Nagarjuna College of Engineering and Technology is an autonomous college and has been accredited by A grade by NAC, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, and also 4 of the UG courses are accredited by the National Board of Accreditation. We also have the ISO certifications for our institution, and our campus is...
Thank you, sir, for briefing about the webinar. Now I request D.R. Kumarswamy to continue his presentation with a small video clip.
Biodiversity. It represents the wealth of all biological resources available to us. Each species, no matter how big or small, has an important role to play in ecosystem. Various plants and animal species depend on each other for what each offers, and these diverse species ensures natural sustainability for all life forms. For instance, human beings are dependent on various plants and animals for their food, shelter, and clothes, and likewise many other species are dependent on each other for such purposes. Richness of biodiversity makes our planet fit for the survival of each of the species living here.
The main cause of the loss of biodiversity can be attributed to the influence of human beings on the world's ecosystem. In fact, human beings have deeply altered the environment and have modified the territory, exploiting the species directly.
Biodiversity depletion is a natural phenomenon, but the present levels of biodiversity depletion are many times higher than the natural rate. Recently, the levels of loss in biodiversity have started causing global concern.
A good day. Welcome to the short talk on World Environment Day 2020. Theme of the World Environment Day is biodiversity. With the invitations to all the participants for the World Environment Day. The World Environment Day 2020 theme will be on biodiversity. United Nations Environment Program announces that Colombia will be the hosting World Environment Day 2020 in partnership with Germany. The main focus of World Environment Day 2020 would be on biodiversity. This is biodiversity start with the sun actually, because sun is the god as per the Indian philosophy, and without sun there is no biodiversity. So the age of the sun is about 7 billion million, and then the age of the earth is about 4,500 million. Sun is actually the diameter of the sun is 1.4 million kilometer, and the core temperature is about 15 million degrees centigrade. The corona temperature is 2 million degrees centigrade. So this temperature is actually required for the earth to maintain the biodiversity. This is the earth cross section. You can see it is diameter is 13,000 kilometers. Water, 2/3 is the water, 1/3 is the land, and this water is actually maintaining temperature. Earth. Also water is biodiversity. This is the temperature of the environment. As you go higher and higher in the stratosphere, mesosphere, and atmosphere, the temperature decreases, increases, decreases, and finally in thermosphere, the temperature rises. And the ozone is the layer which is in the stratosphere, is and it is spread about 25 kilometer thickness. Since the pressure is 0, it is 25 kilometer. If the pressure is 1 bar, then the thickness is 2.2 millimeter, by 220 bar. If the 1% of the destruction of the ozone by chlorofluorocarbons, there may be an increase in 100% skin cancer, cataract to the living organic. That's why ozone layer, which is manufactured by the nature, is about 600 million years. Water is the main cause for the biodiversity. So the total water distribution around the world is 100%. 97.5% is the salt water, where you cannot possible to use it as a drinking water. So it is used for the navigation. The fresh water is only 2.5%, and out of 2.5% fresh water, the lakes and river water is only 0.3%. That's why. So we have to conserve and utilize the water efficiently, because it is only 0.3% out of 2. Groundwater is also a very important. Next to the surface water, highest water storage is in the groundwater. So groundwater charges according to the impervious or the perviousness of the ground level. The forest is actually 100% pervious. So highest recharges take place in green area or forest area. In urban areas like Bangalore and other major cities, the imperviousness is only 15%. So that's why the water table is very, very low, as the publics are using the bore wells for tapping water. The evolution, when you consider the evolution of the life on the earth, so it says the cycle evolution up to the, if you consider earth has a age of only 24 hours, then up to full moon, the evolution take place under. There is no evolution on the earth because still the ozone layer is not formed organism on the earth. So everything is in millions of years. So even the dinosaurs and all, the age of reptiles, 5 million years, 225 million years. When compared to this scale, the modern human Homo sapiens appears about 2 seconds before midnight. So the human beings are the last entry to this earth. And in the name of development, he has actually conserved 80% of the biodiversity for his own benefit. Yeah, this is all done because of the population explosion. So India is the second highest population in the world. The first is China, and America is 3 times bigger than India, but the population is only 30.3 crores, whereas India is 1/3 of USA land area. It is 130 crores. So since the population is increased, we call it as an explosion. This is actually exerting high pressure on biodiversity. So to give food grains or shelter, all these things, the Indians are actually depends upon. So during the agricultural green revolution or during industrialization or construction of the houses, he is actually encroaching the forest or destroying the forest and building his own houses or the agricultural. Yeah, biodiversity is a very important factor on the earth, because without biodiversity, there is no human. Biodiversity is nothing but the variability of life on earth. Biodiversity is typically a measure of variation at genetic, species, ecosystem levels. Terrestrial biodiversity is usually greater near the equator, which is a result of warm climate. That means the equatorial area, either side of the equator, temperature is high, that is warm. So because of that, there is a lot of greeneries. That is nothing but primary productivity. The biodiversity is not distributed evenly Earth, because as you go towards the North Pole or South Pole, since the radiation is very less, biodiversity. A tropical forest ecosystem covered less than 10% of the Earth's surface, but it contains 90% of the world species. So that's why the biodiversity is very, very important. And normally what we are actually seeing that destruction of biodiversity, destruction of the forest of the tropical countries is really an unfortunate. The next is the marine biodiversity, which is usually highest along the coastal in the Western Pacific, where the sea surface temperature is higher. So what it indicates, if the temperature is higher, then only there is a chance of biodiversity. Otherwise, no. And the mid of the latitudinal band in all oceans, there are latitudinal gradients in species diversity. Biodiversity generally tends to cluster in hotspots. There are 18 hotspots in the world. Out of that, 2 hotspots are in India. This is the biodiversity, the various type of flowering plants, insects, animals. So these are all there actually in the earth biodiversity. This is the food chain or the food web. So more wider the bottom, then is a sustainable development called sustainable food chain. So primary producers are producing the food because of the photosynthesis, and these the next level are the herbivorous called the primary consumer. The next level is called the carnivorous, that is secondary consumer or omnivorous. The next is the top carnivorous is actually a terrestrial consumers. So consumers, less consumers, but more primary producers, a stable food chain. So this is also an estuary, which is very rich in biodiversity. And during the rainy season, most of the organic matter and fertile land is actually washed away to the rivers, and it is deposited in the estuaries. So some of the good fishes which actually lays their egg in the sweet water. So they move from ocean to sweet water, lay eggs and return back to the ocean. So nowadays there are so many dams were built across the rivers that indicates that there is a less discharge of water, and all the organic matter is going to be settled in the dams, and there is a less discharge or less deposition of organic matter, estuaries. Because of this, there is every chances of the precious fish may migrate to the other area. The next is the mangroves. Mangroves is actually all over the India or all over the world. The Indian coastal line is about 7,000 kilometers, and these mangroves are actually protecting the coastal areas, and lot of bio activities are take place in mangroves. Biggest mangroves are actually in the India, Bangladesh and Burma border. All the three countries have got a huge biodiversity of the mangroves. Yeah, biodiversity levels are in three categories: genetic biodiversity, species biodiversity, and ecosystem biodiversity. A few important facts about the India. So there are two hotspots in India, I already told you. One is the Western Ghats, another one is the Eastern Himalayas. So out of 18 biodiversity, 2 biodiversities are in India. And the Ministry of Environment and Forest made a survey in 1999. The figures are 4,219 plant species are representing 12.5% and 18,251 animal species representing 6.6% of the world species. The sacred groves of India are some of the areas in the country where the richness of biodiversity has been well preserved. The Thar Desert, the Himalayas are two regions rich in biodiversity. In India, there are 89 national parks, 104 wildlife sanctuaries in the country. The Chilka Lake in Varisa is also one of an important wetland area. India's 10 biogeographic zones is shown in the PPT. That is from Trans-Himalaya, the Himalaya, desert, semi-arid, Western Ghats, Deccan Peninsula, Gangetic Plain, coastal area, northeastern parts, and also the islands. Islands are very important because of the shallow water. There is a high biodiversity shallow water, that is here islands, especially Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar. Yeah, biodiversity is cycle, that is life. You can see the PPT biodiversity. The 61% is the arthropods, then molluscs are 6.5%. The turtle and tortoise is 0.02%, and fungus is 6%. Birds and crocodiles are 0.6%. Mammals are 0.3%. The human beings are actually in mammals. So mammals means all the animals including human beings, it is only 0.3%, whereas the arthropoda is 61%. And even the green plants, the green cover is 15%. So when compared to the green plants and arthropoda, human beings are very, very small compared to the lizard, the snakes, protisters, and true bacteria, and other amphibians 0.3%, and fishes, that is 1.4%, and echinoderms 0.4%. This is the arthropoda. Arthropodas are, I already told you, 61%. The species varies from 5 to 10 million. So this is the rich biodiversity on the earth. Next is the plant, 15% species are 3,20,000 numbers. Green plants provide a substantial proportion of the world molecular oxygen. So if you cut the greeneries, we are going to lose the molecular oxygen. That's why the green cover is very, very important. So which is the most important is the earth ecosystem is the plants. So 260 to 290,000 plants species produces the seeds. The plants are produces the grains, which we are using paddy, jowar, rice, wheat, millets, etc. are the grains, and fruits, vegetables, and also, which are also a forms of basic human foods. So our vegetables is also greeneries. Our food grains is also come from greeneries, and all the medicinal plants are actually greeneries, and the paper industries, medicine industries, all these industries are from the plants, and also our houses is also requires the plants. The study of the plants is botany, which is a branch of biology. Yeah, mollusca 6.5%. So the extinct species are more actually, but the current species is 85,000 numbers. The number of fossil species is estimated is around 1.5 lakh species. Actually, fossils no more. The important food is actually for human is the mushrooms. The important food source for human, however, some species are toxic. So molluscs are also some parts human beings consume as a food, but some of the species are very toxic, and also being is a source of important luxury goods, notable pearl, and mother of pearl, and some purple dyes, also sea silk. All the pearls are actually available from the molluscs. The fungus or fungi, it is 6%. The species, about 38 lakh numbers. Species, about 300 species are pathogenic to humans. So you cannot. The mushrooms are them where you can use them as a food. The yeast are there, molds are there. The fungus do not photosynthesis because they actually depends on the dead parts of the plants or the animals. The fungus are the principal decomposers. So if there is no fungus, then the decomposition process is actually comes down, because these decomposers is actually liberating all the nutrients to the plants. And the direct source of human food in terms of form of mushrooms and truffles as a leavening agents of bread, and the fermentation of various food products such as wine, beer, and soya sauce. For all these things, they use the fungi or the fungi. And from 1940s, the fungi have been used for the production of antibiotics, and various enzymes are produced by the fungi are used industrially and in detergents. Fungi are also used for biological pesticide. Okay, these are the fungi where the fungi are used. Already I explained: pulp, paper, textile mills, and food industries, beverages, biofuel, the household items, animal feed, and environmental management, and also biocatalyst. These are all the functions of the fungi. So without fungi, you will not actually get all these things. Protista are the 4%. These are actually single-celled animal called unicellular animal, and few are multicellular. Are the unicellular colony species which form new tissues is slime mold, amoeba, euglena, dinoflagellates, paramecium, diatoms, and macroalgae. These are the protistas, 4%. The diatoms are very important because they generate 20 to 50% of the oxygen produced on the planet each year. So diatoms are also important because diatoms are used in water filtration and also used as a mild abrasive and as a dynamic stabilizer. Diatoms are also often referred as a, due to their optical properties, jewels of sea or living opals. So oxygen recycle is more than 50% by these protesters. Yeah, worms and rotifiers. 3.3% is the worms and rotifiers. The species are around 2,200 species identified. Identified means it is the identification process is still on. Commonly it is called as the wheel animals and common in freshwater environment throughout the world with few saltwater species. If you identify the rotifier, it indicates that there is a less pollution in water. So that's why it is called as a freshwater environment species. The major food source of aquatic animals is also these worms and rotifiers. So if it is destroyed by the human activity or the industrialization and discharging the sewage or effluent into the water, these worms and rotifiers are actually is going to be destroyed. If that is destroyed, the next animal, the aquatic animals species are going to be reduced because it is in the food chain. Next is the finned fish or ray finned fish. It is 1.4%, and fish is around 30,000 species are identified, and there are almost 28,000 known extinct species are already extinct because of the industrialization or because of the nature itself. Okay. The fish species diversity is roughly divided equally between the marine as well as freshwater ecosystems. And some of the industries are depends upon the fish life because they catch the fish, they produce the food, and some of the vitamins are cod liver oil. They are actually manufactured from the. So about 4.3 billion people are reliant on fish for proteins. So about 4.3%, a billion person directly or indirectly depends on the as their food source. Thinidoderms. These are actually 0.6%. These species are 1,000 species of aquatic animals found both in freshwater and marine environment. They are predominantly marine. Cnidarians are limited to shallow water because in the shallow water the light enters up to the bottom of the ocean or up the bottom of the fresh water. So when it is exposed to the sunlight, because of that the activities are very high. So the nutrients are actually these because they are depends on the algae as their nutrients. If there is no algae, then the cnidarians are going to be destroyed. The coral reefs form some of the world's most productive ecosystem. So normally Indians are the all over the world. They like the corals. The corals is an ornament in Indian system. And all over the world it is used as a ornament. And the reefs are actually protect the mangroves or the sea grass from strong currents and the waves that would damage them. The next is the birds and the crocodiles, 0.6%. The crocodiles first appeared 9.5 lakh years ago and are the closest living relatives of the birds. The birds first appeared about 16 lakh years ago in China, and about 130 species of birds have become extinct due to human activities since the 17th century. And these birds actually depends upon their food insects. So these insects are the food for the birds. So it is actually eco-friendly to the agriculture because most of the pests are actually consumed by the bird species. Yeah, lizard and snakes is constitute 0.4%. The lizard species are 1,000 species. Snake species are 3,600 numbers. And the genes of the venom toxin evolved from the common ancestors of lizard and snake some 200 million years ago. 11.3 lakh years old fossils of the four-legged snakes was found in Brazil. So they are much older than the human being. And these snake venoms are used to treat many diseases like cancer, paralysis, etc. And these snakes are actually depends on food on the rats, and these rats actually consumes the agricultural products. That's why to balance this, these snakes and lizards are actually very important systems in the ecosystem. Next is the echinoderms, the 0.4%. The species identified 7,000 so far, which includes the starfish, sea urchins, sand dollars, and sea cucumbers, as well as sea lilies. Echinoderms are also the largest phylum that has no fresh or terrestrial representatives. They are restricted to the marine only. The echinoderms are important both ecological and geological. Major contributors of the to the many limestone formation is this echinoderm. The amphibia. Amphibia is the animals which lives under water and also on the. It is about 0.3%. The species. The number of known amphibian species are approximately 8,000, of which nearly 90% are frogs. The study of amphibian is called actually bacteriology, and the major groups of the amphibians developed around 37 lakh years ago. 90% are frogs, only 10% are the other animals, what you are repeating. These are the mammals. Mammals are only 0.3%. I already explained you. Arthropods are actually 61%, and plant species are 15%. Now mammals are only 0.3%. This mammals contains all these animals what is there in the PPT, and human beings are actually one of in all these systems compared to this mammal human beings a part of it actually. About 6,400 is the extinct species described. This is extinct because of the human activities. And approximately 30 lakh years ago, mammals are derived from the birds and reptiles. Domestication of many types of animals by the human beings played a major role. So, the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro civilization, where actually human settlements are there actually human beings started the agriculture. So during that time, he domesticated some of the animals for his own use. In the Neolithic Revolution, the major role in the Neolithic Revolution and resulted in farming, replacing hunting and gathering as a primary source of food for the humans. Yeah, true bacteria, 0.2% is the true bacteria, but still the bacteria are the major role in the environment. About 400 lakh bacteria cells in single gram of soil, and about 10 lakh bacteria cells are there in milliliter of fresh water. That's why even the fresh water is not actually directly, you cannot drink the fresh water also, because the bacterial count is about 10 lakh number in 1 milliliters. That's why, so before drinking water, it has to be disinfected. And there are approximately 5 into 10 to the power of 30 bacteria in the earth. So this population, when compared to human beings, is a teeny part, is one of the bacteria when compared to the bacterial counts. So this is forming a biomass which exceeds that of all plants and animals, including human beings. Bacteria are the decomposers of the organic matter and plays a vital role in nutrient cycle. So all the nutrients are released back to the environment only by the bacteria activity. 95% of the organic matter is released back into. The study of bacteria is a bacteriology, a branch of microbiology. Nearly all the animal life is dependent on the bacteria for survival, as only bacteria and some archaea process the genes and enzymes necessary to synthesis of vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is a very important vitamin for the living organism, which is actually produced by the bacteria, and also known as the complement. and provides it to the food chain, provide with the food chain. Industry bacteria are important in sewage treatment. Also, the bacteria are used in the activated sludge process. Bacteria are used, and the breakdown of the oil spillages in the ocean or in the river or in the harbor. It is actually done by the bacteria. The conversion of the cheese or yogurt or fermentation is also done by the bacteria. And the recovery of gold, palladium, copper, and other metals in the mining sector, as well as in biotechnology and in the manufacturing of the antibiotics and other chemicals, these two bacteria have a major role actually. That's why every bacteria in the ecosystem is very important. So these are the things I already explained. The water is treated using the microorganism, the soya sauce, the cheese, the yogurt, the beer, the wine, and the bread. All these actually made by the help of the bacteria, and antibiotics are also the biotechnology, which is actually they also use the bacteria to they extract the antibiotics. The next is the turtles and tortoise. The turtles are actually water dwelling, and the tortoise are actually in the land living or the terrestrial species. They are very less, 0.02% only, but their species is also in dangerous and endangered because of the fishing over exploiting the marine products. So you might have seen in the TVs because one of the tortoise actually it took birth in the ocean, that is in the land, in the beaches, and it returns back after 40 years. So it is very wonder how it actually returns after 40 years, moves around the world and lays eggs in the same place. This is the animal biodiversity. Okay, this is the marine biodiversity you are already explained. The plant biodiversity, bird biodiversity.
Here are the major reasons that cause biodiversity loss. Overexploitation.
The exploitation of natural resources to the point of diminishing returns has significantly given rise to biodiversity loss. Activities such as overhunting, overfishing, overmining, and excessive logging have greatly reduced biodiversity levels.
Habitat loss. When a habitat is degraded or destroyed as a result of the natural or human activities such as earthquakes, land use, deforestation, or agriculture, biodiversity is lost as the ecological system supporting biological survival is taken away. Even if only a small portion of an ecosystem is destroyed, the entire system's balance becomes vulnerable. Human overpopulation.
Overpopulation has witnessed continued encroachment into frontier forest, heightened pollution, and destruction of natural ecosystems that has considerably contributed to the mass extinction of species. The number of threatened species persists to multiply worldwide, whereas some have completely gone extinct.
Climate change.
When climate change occurs, temperatures can increase dramatically. When temperature rises, many different changes can occur on Earth. It can result in more floods, droughts, or intense rain, as well as more frequent and severe heat waves.
Pollution.
The various forms of pollution, including water pollution, soil pollution, air pollution, land pollution, and agricultural pollution, simply destroy animal and plant habitats due to the toxic substances and chemicals released into the biological system, contributing to their eventual death.
Okay, various acts are there to protect the environment. Water Act 1974, the Water Rules 75, the CES rules 1977, and Water CES rules. They're all actually deleted now. Actually, they are not in force. The Air Act is actually 1981, and the air rules. Environmental Protection Act is 1986. So the Biodiversity Act is the latest is 2002, which is actually protect the biodiversity act. Under the Environmental Protection Act, there are so many notifications: the hazardous waste management rules, the biomedical rules, the solid waste management rules, the recycling of plastic rules, the manufacturing and storage and import of hazardous chemical rules, the battery rules, the Public Liability Insurance Act, the e-waste management and handling rules, and construction and demolition waste rules. These are all actually enacted under the environmental protection rules to protect the environment, and it is implemented by the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board or the State Pollution Control Board in the country, and it is monitored by the Central Pollution Control Board. Ultimately, it is monitored by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Yeah, just a gist of the Biological Diversity Act or Biodiversity Act 2002. It says that this act may be called as Biological Diversity Act 2002. And Act provides the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of biological resource, knowledge, and for matters connected with therewith incidental thereto. So biodiversity means what it is actually explained: the variability among the living organisms from all sources and the ecological complexes of which they are part, and includes biodiversity within species or between species or on the ecosystems. Biological resource is also explained, which also includes plant, animal, microorganism are part thereto, and their genetic materials and their byproduct, excluding the value of added product, and with actual or potential use or value, but does not include the human genetic materials. Except human genetic materials, it is actually covered by the Biodiversity Act 2002. Yeah, these are the salient features. There are 10 salient features, which says prohibition of transfer of Indian genetic material outside the country, prohibition of anyone to claim an intellectual property, regulation of the collection and use of biodiversity of Indian national measures to share the benefit from the use of biodiversity. These are all the actually salient features of the Act. Yeah, this is the just on May 22nd we celebrated the International Biodiversity Day 2020. The theme is very important. It is our solutions are in nature. This is very important. For all solutions, most of the solutions are in nature, because most of the herbs or the shrubs or the Ayurveda, they use the natural product to treat some of the diseases by our ancestors also. Not from today. It is from the good old olden ancestors. They are treating the diseases by using the herbs and that are available on the earth. Okay, our solutions are in nature. Because in Ramayana also, you can see the Lakshmana was actually treated using the Sanjeevani plant. So Sanjeevani is actually we don't know whether Sanjeevani now it is available or not. And near Sagar, one villager is actually treating all type of diseases using the herbal medicines. And in villages in early days, they use the herbal medicines to treat the snake bites or scorpion bites. Even the Ayush recommends the herbal product to control the COVID-19. So, which is actually recommended by the Ayush government of India. And most of the food source are from the biodiversity only. Since the most of the food are from the biodiversity, so we directly depends on our solutions are on nature. That is exactly the meaning that without nature, the human being cannot survive in this. Yeah, biodiversity is already explained. One is on the Himalayan range, another one is on the Chilka Lake and Sundarbans, Western Ghats, and the Thar Desert. These are the biodiversity of India. Yeah, biodiversity structure is three-tier structure: National Biodiversity Authority, NBA, State Biodiversity Authority, it is SBB, and Biodiversity Management Committee is also there, BMC, which is actually look after this implementation of the Biodiversity Act. Yeah, conserving of agricultural biodiversity. So agricultural, all products are actually domesticated. All these paddy, rice, the wheat, jawar, millet, all these plants are actually from the forest only. And these forest grains are actually domesticated, and by the agriculture we are producing. And most of the food grains, what you are obtaining, in that from the agricultural biodiversity. Uh, this is the Seva, this is Beej Bachao Andolan, the Himalayan crops. So these are the some of the NGOs which are very active in protecting the environment. Yeah, you come to the water pollution. I already explained you because of the human activity, or we can say because of industrialization, uh, not well planned industrialization, because well planned industrialization is also a very important part. So most of the effluents, especially human sewage, is discharged into the lakes, or discharged into the nalas, or discharged into the rivers. And this is the situation. Sometimes the plastics are also disposed to the lakes or to the valleys, which are ultimately joins to the lake resource or the ecosystem in the ocean or in the dams, which actually really destroys the ecosystem in the lakes or in the ocean or in the river. Yeah, sometimes our Indian festivals are also sometimes disturb the ecosystem. Example, Ganesha festival. So pollution control board is actually recommending to go for the non-painted Ganesha festivals, because Ganeshas, if you are to be painted, and these paint contains the heavy metals like lead, cadmium, nickel, chromium, like that, and which is a problem to the ecosystem. And pollution control board is recommending for a clay Ganesha with a short Ganesha, so half feet height, and you can discharge it to the bucket of water, and so that you can protect all the lakes. You check all the lakes during the Ganesha festival. A lot of Ganeshas were actually disposed in the lake. That too POP, plaster Paris, which takes about 1 month to 2 months to dissolve, and these clay Ganeshas are within 24 hours to dissolve. So you can discharge, you can use a bucket of water, dispose the Ganesha, and discharge the water into the plants of your backyard. The industrial revolution and the pollution and by the human beings, because the pioneer in industrialization in India, the Sir Vishwesvaraya, he says industrialize or perish. So industrialization is a must because of the population explosion. So in the before independence, the population was only 30 crores. Now it is 130 crores. That's why the industrialization is important. In the meantime, we have to control the pollution. We cannot dispose the industrial effluent, and sometimes you are actually exploiting the underground water as a borewell water for the industrialization. If you over exploit the borewell water, there is every chances of contamination in the rock strata itself. Example, the fluorisis or the arsenic. So in Pavgada and Chikbalapura areas, the fluorisis is a common. This is because of the land strata itself, and this fluorisis is a disease which actually destroys the bones and the teeth. Yeah, arsenic is also because of the over exploitation. So it is there in India and also in Argentina, Chile, and also in USA. Some part of the Chikbalapur is also, sorry, Kolar is also there actually. But disease actually we are not identified. But this is the disease called Blackfoot disease. If any person consumes the arsenic contaminated water for 5 to 10 years, then all the cells absorb the arsenic and his food becomes black. So this is called as the Blackfoot disease. This is the cadmium pollution. Cadmium is also used in the pesticide. Cadmium is also used in the electroplating industries. If the industry discharges the untreated cadmium effluent, then the plants are actually pick up this cadmium and is biomagnified in the plant. If such plants are consumed by the human being, or such aquatic life is consumed by the human beings, that is accumulated the human beings, and The disease is called eta disease. The lead poisoning is also because all the heavy metals, chromium, cadmium, nickel, and lead, these are the heavy metals. They are really dangerous to the environment, but these are also an important metal which they are using in the electroplating. Yeah, this is the chromium pollution. Normally, electroplating industry, they use the chromium for plating, and untreated chromium effluent discharge, and this is the disease. Their lungs are going to be destroyed by the chromium. Yeah, mercury pollution is actually first appeared in Japan. There was one industry because this methyl mercury, when it is discharged to the ocean, all the microorganisms convert the inorganic mercury into an organic mercury, and this organic mercury is taken up by algae, and this algae is taken up by invertebrates, and invertebrates are the actually food chain for the fishes, and the fish consumes, and all the mercury is going to accumulated in the fish bones and fish flesh, and if that is consumed by the fishermen or the public, that is going to be accumulated or biomagnified in the human system. So this is one of the caustic soda factory in Karnataka. They were using actually mercury as a cathode. Now actually Pollution Control Board and the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change take an initiative, and they have given a time to 5 years to change the mercury into a titanium unit. Now no mercury industries are there in the country, so because it is replaced by a titanium metal. So in Pina, the underground water is actually, when monitored by the Pollution Control Board, it is found that there is a underground water pollution contamination. This is because of some of the industries which they discharges illegally the untreated electroplating industries into the drainage, and ultimately drainage joins the lakes, and during the transfer period, sometimes all these heavy metals are actually going to the underground by the seepage, or it is called as an infiltration, and once it is infiltrated, and that is a permanent damage to the underground water system, and underground water system, it cannot be treated because this underground water is actually stored from millions of years. So that's why I request all the industries of India or all over the country not to discharge any electroplating effluent outside the industry without any treatment, because the government has provided the financial assistance to so many common effluent treatment plant systems, where you can tie up with the common effluent treatment plant. The persons or the authority from the common effluent treatment plant come to your step door, and they collect the effluent from the electroplating industry, and they are going to treat it. So that's why it is the appeal to the public that you have to have a tie-up, all the electroplating industry to tie up with this common effluent authority. Okay, the Water Act is there to protect the water, and it is applicable to the whole of the country. The pollution, it is explained. Pollution means in such contamination of water or such alteration of the physical, chemical, biological property of water, or such discharge of any sewage or trade effluent or any other liquid, gaseous or solid substance into water, whether directly or indirectly. So directly means directly to the lake or directly to the river or directly to the stream. Indirectly means if you are discharging to the drainage actually ultimately joins to the lake or to the stream or to the nala or to the river. So this is the indirect, as may be and as likely to create nuisance. It says likely to create nuisance or render such water harmful or injurious to public health or safety or to the domestic, commercial, industrial, agricultural or other legitimate use, or to the life and health of animals or plants or of aquatic organisms. So organisms also include the organisms of the soils, not only aquatic with organisms. The pollution is such harmful. When it becomes harmful, then only it is called as the pollution. Otherwise, no. The concentration is actually defined. For example, the drinking water BOD is should be 0. So if it is a BOD is there, means there is a pollution. Normally, Pollution Control Board actually monitor the lakes. We found BOD is sometimes 10 milligram per liter is too high actually, because river BOD normally in the rainy season it is 3 milligram per liter. So drinking water BOD should be 0 as per IS 10,500. Yeah, this is the common effluent treatment plant where they collect in Karnataka. There are 10 common effluent treatment plants. They collect from effluent from all the electroplating industries and of the small scale. Because the small scale, they feel that they are very difficult to maintain the treatment plant. That's why they have a tie-up with the common effluent treatment plant. The common effluent treatment plant personnel are actually going to treat the effluent to the required standard as per the Pollution Control Board norms, and the treated water is recycled back into the system or the recycle for the gardening. The Air Act in 1981, first is the Water Act, then comes the Air Act 1991. Here also it is explained, it is actually extended to the whole of the India. And the air pollutant, it actually gives the definition. Air pollutant means any solid, liquid or gaseous substance, including noise, present in the atmosphere. It is present in the atmosphere in such concentration as may be or tend to be injurious to the human beings. It says injurious to the human being or other living creatures or plants or property or environment. So it states the injurious to human beings. Okay, don't complain about the temples, because temples they use this agarbattis. Agarbatti smell is not injurious to the human beings. So that's why I am telling you it should be injurious. What injurious, it is mentioned in the act. All the details are given. If you go through the act, it will. The air pollution is directly actually hit the human's respiratory system, where the lungs are actually affected. This is what actually Pollution Control Board has measured the air pollution in the Bangalore city the 5 years back. 60% of the pollution is because of the transportation and because of the bad roads. That is 62%, and from the industries it is only 14%. The Pollution Control Board is actually really controlling the 14% these industries by asking industries to provide the control systems. Yeah, so more industrialization means more liberation of the carbon dioxide. Is already 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide is already accumulated in the atmosphere, and this causes the greenhouse effect. So greenhouse effect is nothing but the global warming. There are so many other problems is related with the global warming. So we'll discuss with the later. This is the smog. The smoke and the fog joins together, it becomes smog. When there is a smog, the visibility is very low, so very difficult to drive your vehicles. And the aeroplane, sometimes it is diverted to the some other aerodromes, because it is also affect the aeroplane paths. So visibility is very important. So visibility is disturbed, and if it is 24 hours, the smog is there, and the respiratory system is also going to be disturbed, and there is every chances of the people may suffer from asthma and other diseases. Yeah, the next is the sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides are also released when the fossil fuels are burnt, and these sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide are going to dissolve in the humidity, and when it is dissolved in the humidity, it becomes sulfuric acid and nitric acid. When the pH of the rainwater is less than 5.2, then it is called acid rains. Once there is an acid rain, it is going to destroy the forest, because the leaves of the green leaves are very sensitive to the pH, and also the soil microorganisms are also very sensitive. If the pH is less than 5.2, then all the soil microbes are going to be disturbed. And industrialization sometimes causes the problem if there is a gas leakages. Earlier in 1984, there was a methyl isocyanate gas leakage in Bhopal. So then the recent is actually Visakhapatnam gas tragedy, which is a styrene gas leakage on 7th May, which actually caused a havoc in the Visakhapatnam city. The ambient noise is also a problem, so it is fixed by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. The industrial area now should not exceed daytime 75 decibels and nighttime 70 decibels. And the silent zone is the hospitals, court and offices, and it is the silent zone. Daytime 50 decibel, night 40 decibel. Yeah, in Bangalore it is very difficult to find the silent zones. Even the Kalasipalya, where the hospital is there, the noise is very high. Okay, Environmental Protection Act, which covers all other acts I told you. In Environmental Protection Act also, the environmental pollutants are actually means what it is says, the solid, liquid, gaseous substances present in such concentration. Okay, such concentration which is injurious to the environment. That's what I think. If it is not injurious, then you need not worry, because what is injurious, the content is also given in the same act. Hazardous waste management rules, which says about the hazardous nature and how it has to be disposed and all. This rules 2016, if you go through, it gives, because hazardous waste is very problematic and which is non-biodegradable. So next is the biomedical waste, which applies to the all the nursing homes, all the blood bank, pathogen bacteria laboratories, blood banks, Ayush hospital, clinical establishment, forensic lab, research lab, blood donation camps. All these are actually covered under the biomedical waste. In Karnataka, we have 25 biomedical waste disposal facilities. So they have actually got this biomedical waste incinerator. Biomedical waste incineration is a special design. There are two chambers. First chamber is 800 degrees centigrade, and the second chamber is actually 1050 degrees centigrade. All the biomedical waste is actually disposed to these common biomedical waste centers, around 100 ton per day. Maybe the biomedical waste generated in Karnataka, that is actually collected by the common effluent common biomedical waste treatment facilities and incinerated their respective areas. In Bangalore, we have got 3 numbers. In Mysore, we have got 2 numbers, and all over the state 25 number biomedical waste disposal facilities. So e-waste is also one of the important recently, because one of the estimations shows us about 86,000 metric ton per annum of e-waste is generated in the Bangalore, and Karnataka State Pollution Control Board given a consent to the recycler dismantler for a total capacity 13,000 metric ton per annum can be recycled. So that much of capacity the Pollution Control Board has given. You can get the address of go to our website. So plastic rules is also applicable to the all over the country, but in Karnataka state government made a rules. It actually in 2016 it banned all the plastic bags, plastic thin sheets, plastic some ornaments, all these things actually banned. So because it is indiscriminately used and thrown to the environment. So this is how actually if you throw the plastic waste, it stays in the environment up to 450 years. That means 5 generations. So it is actually going to pollute all the seashores, lake water, streams, and also the solid waste disposal sites. So solid waste is a big problem. It's around 5,000 tons per day in Bangalore alone actually, because of municipal solid waste generation is collected by the BBMP. There are so many methods to treat. But before treating, you have to segregate all these things. These are all recyclable. Cloth is recyclable, or the slippers, or the glass, or the plastic. They are collected and they can recycle back. Only rule says that only 10% to 11% is only the dump in the disposal in the landfill area. Otherwise, 90% has to be recycled back. So this is one of the method. All the biodegradable waste collected from the solid waste can be converted into an organic composting, and this organic composting can be used for the plants. This is the initiative taken by the Pollution Control Board. The Pollution Control Board is actually monitoring the 83 stations of the rivers in Karnataka, and it also monitors 120 lakes in Karnataka full, and it is given in the website class A water quality, class B water quality, class D water quality, class E water qualities. So depending upon the pollution load, so here actually 76% of the water is under class C. Class C means it is given a drinking water source with conventional treatment followed by the disinfection. So you cannot drink directly the water. Even the class A water is a drinking water source, but we have to be disinfected. So because I already told you, so the 1 milliliter of water contains the huge quantity of microorganisms. So this is the lake monitoring. 120 lakes are actually monitored by the Pollution Control Board. on 60% of the lake water is to the class D. Class D is actually mentioned, is actually you can use only for the propagation of the wildlife and fisheries. So this is all because of the discharge of the either the in the cities it is only because of the sewage discharge, some few lakes maybe industrial pollution. Otherwise, most of them 60% is only by the human sewage. So what is the conclusion? Why the biodiversity is major? Because human beings are a teeny part of the whole biodiversity. Hence, without biodiversity, human beings cannot survive. But without human beings, nature can survive. So because of that, we can celebrate our all occasions by planting sampling, celebrate all our festivals in eco-friendly manner, and promote the use of non-conventional eco-friendly renewable energy resource, and adopt the 6 R's. R means rethink before using, and reduce, recycle, reuse, refurbish, and repair. Next, not the least, it is actually a small steps taken towards the conservation of the biodiversity would be a result in sustainability of the earth. Yeah, thank you. Now actually we can discuss for panel discussion for 20 minutes. Okay, after 20 minutes we are going to give you a quiz. There are 20 questions. You have to answer in 10 minutes. Okay, after 10 minutes all the lines are going to be closed, and minimum 50% you have to score. At least you can try, everybody can try. So because the Pollution Control Board is going to distribute the awards. There are 15 awards by the State Pollution Control Board, and also we are expecting some awards also from the Central Pollution Control Board. So that is actually going to be distributed, and all the participants are actually, they are getting the online certificates, and the awardees, they are getting the certificate and award.
Thank you, sir, for your informative presentation. Shortly, we will move to panel discussion. Participants, please ask questions in the YouTube live chat. Panelists will discuss your questions. Feedback is must to receive the certificate. Feedback link will be closed at 1 p.m. today. You must have to score 50% of the mark. Thank you. All the best. Hello, sir. Now we are starting the panel discussion. Panelists, they can ask the student questions, and each panelist will answer all the questions. So when you are speaking, you can unmute your audio and you can start your question and answers. I request P.N. Ramesh Kumar to answer the questions.
Hello. So first question is, we talk about biodiversity and legislation. However, deforestation happens, pollutants are highest level, women and child labor, very poor sanitation management. I think we good in analysis and review, but not in implementing right solution and enforcement. In this case, actually, during 2016, depending on the present scenario, out of 9 rules, hazardous waste rules, biomedical waste management rules, solid waste management rules, 6 rules are amended, C&D rules are implemented separate, plastic rules are implemented separately, e-waste rules are separate. So these are all, so clearly indicates that we are moving towards the positive side and implementation side. Only there are small hitches. I think the government is taking care for rectifying the problems, and implementation will be in a better manner. Thank you. The second issue raised in the presentation is man-animal conflicts and over-exploitation of medicinal plants not mentioned, and it is to be taken care. Mr. Kumaraswamy, please
Very good question actually. Man and animal conflict is actually look after by the forest department. So whenever they need a conflict, so they are going to give the compensation. Problem because of the explosion of the population. So, human beings are actually enforcing the forest, not the animals are enforcing the cities. It is actually well taken by the forest department. And this over exploitation of the medicinal plants are not known. Yeah, some of the medicinal plants is actually known species are actually grown in the farm, which are unknown is actually known by only some of the villagers. And over exploitation is not the correct word, I think. Any loss in the biodiversity is over exploitation only. There is no clear mention about the medicinal plants. So that's why not worry, I think.
I request Suresh, Regional Director, Central Pollution Control Board, to speak few words on this. Remedial measures taken by Government of India to overcome all sorts of pollution in recent years.
Yeah, here we would like to inform that. So from time to time, now, so if you see this Water and Air Act, it was formed very long back. Now many amendments have been given, and also the enforcement, to make the things enforcement very strict. So many apps have been introduced day to day. The powers have been decentralized. So many mandatory, statutory applications are introduced. That means Central Pollution Control Board at the national level have introduced many tools for the strict implementation. And we have tuned up wherever that lacuna was there earlier. So by experience and by hearing from the Pollution Control Board and the Pollution Control Committees, we have tuned up the legislation. So I think now it is the duty of the Pollution Control Boards at the state level to enforce it strictly. And also at many of the forums, what we are seeing is many of the rules are capable of handling the things. Only we have to further strict the enforcement, then definitely we are going to achieve the things. So no further planned at this point of time. No new rules we are not, only strict enforcement only we are planning. Thank you.
Hello. Next issue is lead poisoning pollution is there in India. I'm sorry.
This lead pollution earlier it was noticed, but not to that very high levels. What I actually explained in the slides. So we are using the petrol which contains the lead, and the Pollution Control Board recommended to the central government to stop the use of lead in the petrol. Now because of that, now there is no lead available. By the Central Pollution Control Board Authority. This is for your kind information.
The next issue is how to prevent landfill of all valuable resources. Can you advise how cities pollution can be prevented? I request Venkatesh Shekhar, Senior Environmental Officer of Pollution Control Board, to speak on this.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your question. And the main question here is how to prevent the landfill of valuable resources. What you are asking for this is on how to utilize the solid waste in a proper way. Means whatever the waste that has been generated from various sources, both at the home, industries, and all other activities come together, is a solid waste that is being generated, and that has to be utilized in a proper way. And before 2000, the solid waste rules have not been framed. It was in an independent act or rules in the independent municipalities, and there is no comprehensive rules on this issue. But in 2000, that is exactly, and comprehensive rules has been formed, which was known as municipal solid waste rules. That rules especially says that the garbage, whatever is generated from the municipality, very particular to the homes and the commercial and the other local activities within the cities, have to be segregated and properly disposed in various ways and ultimately the landfill sites. And over the years, it was found that it is not only the municipality that is causing the garbage or the solid waste, but also all other types of the pollution also included into this. Therefore, the central government in recent times, in 2016, have framed new rules called solid waste management and handling rules, which includes not only municipalities, which also includes all types of waste from all other activities also. Now, the rules specifically in 2016 has become totally comprehensive, and the rules which especially gives an highlights of these rules are that as far as possible, the total waste have to be recycled in one or the other way up to 85%, and the remaining 15% are to be landfill. Therefore, the landfill requirement will be less. It is possible practically at home to segregate the waste and given to the municipal collector or whatever it is there, and these municipal collectors have to segregate the waste and reprocess it and recycle it for valuable resources. Therefore, all these valuable resources and the resources are not supposed to be reached to the landfill. However, in the rules, 15% is allowed for debris and all inert waste. These debris and inert waste will not cause any leachate in this manner. Therefore, the latest rule is very helpful as long as if it is properly enforced by the concerned agencies from the government, from the NGO, and so many things. Therefore, it is at our enforcement we need to streamline and discipline ourselves to make this landfill a valuable resources. Landfill, ultimately, it is only debris and inert, and which has to be utilized in a different way. Thank you. And this is possible in all these cities. And it has to be started right from segregation up to the landfill site. Thank you.
Hello. One question is COVID-19 effect on biodiversity. Shri Kumaraswamy, please brief this.
Yeah, COVID-19 is very recent problem actually. So biodiversity is a long process, more than 10 years, 50 years, 100 years like that. But in Karnataka, we are not facing this problem because we have a 25 number of common biomedical treatment facilities. Only what is COVID-19 biomedical is collected and disposed in the common biomedical waste treatment facilities. And all these 25 common biomedical waste treatment facilities, what we actually observed, they are operated only maximum 4 hours. That means there are still a lot of this one is capacity is available for disposal of the biomedical waste. But as we observe, ultimately challenge. So biodiversity is not affected because the lake water is clear, the dam water is clear, the Yamuna water is clear. This is not because of COVID. This is because of the stoppage of all the industries and the human activities. So it is very difficult to say about the COVID-19 effect on biodiversity. But as per the Karnataka is concerned, we are handling all the biomedical waste in a very scientific manner. This is the kind of information.
I don't think anything is negative in this biodiversity because in view of this COVID-19 disease, a lot of activities have been stopped and which has proved to be very fertile in respect of sea pollution control and so many other air pollution and other things, even in the lakes also. Therefore, I feel there is an effect of this COVID-19 on the biodiversity, most probably of positive nature. Of course, very negative to the human health. Next.
What solution KSPCB is proposing to deal with stopping, controlling leachate being infiltrated into ground from garbage landfills?
Yeah, this is in continuation of my answer in the question number 5, where the rules have been framed for the solid waste management, and it just clearly indicated that only 15% of the debris and the inert waste has to reach the landfill. Either the inert waste and the debris are not creating any leachate for that matter. Therefore, there is no proper, there is no necessity for thinking negative on this aspect. However, in respect of the previous pollution that has already been dumped, the waste that has been dumped in the landfill has to be taken care of. This is a real challenging issue in almost all the cities, where the existing landfill sites has to be redesigned, and all these waste has to be taken back and used for some other purpose. There are some technical issues which are under the implementation to utilize how to make use of the old garbage. However, these leachates are not at all creating any problem, because all these leachates, if it is properly collected in the landfill sites, can be recycled as per the provisions of the new solid waste routes also. Therefore, if it is used properly, the leachate is not a problem as long as it is scientific.
Sir, Suresh, I request Suresh to please explain about this. One question is, as a teacher, how can I apply for project proposal to Central Pollution Control Board? I request Suresh to explain on this.
Yeah, here we would like to inform that. So usually we are not, if it is related with the pollution control and also with mainly with the objective of the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board, any ongoing field issues are there, then only a project proposal can be submitted. It is similar to any of the other projects we are doing in the engineering colleges or any other project. So preamble, cost and all, and they should be able to complete it in the financial year. Usually we prefer that any issues based on the issues, 3 months, 6 months or 9 months time will be given. For example, now recently we have given up the many studies like groundwater assessment, the studies of the Tannery effluent, effect on the environment, like that. It could be related with any part of the environment. So they can directly apply to our office to giving this fund. First they can send the mail through mail. Now we will give the office mail. So first they can submit the email, then we will look into that and we will suggest some of the measures. Then it can be further tuned up and then we will call for the discussion. So it will take a minimum of 1 month time to undergo all this process. Then if the project proposal is satisfying to the Central Pollution Control Board, then further we can go ahead. So this is the usual method. First they can send the query to our this one through mail. So through mails we can do, and then if it comes to on stage, then we can further negotiate. Thank you.
Next. Sir, this question is to Dr. Venkatesh Babu. Sir,
Yes, sir.
to control environment pollution, to create awareness among peoples, to shop floor level in the society, what are the steps taken by NGOs and in institutions? Is it taken sufficient, and can we take more steps? Please, sir.
Yes, sir. So good afternoon to all of you, sir. Sir, actually, we all know that any environmental protection or environment acts, anything, we have to follow. See, we have to obey the law. And we all know that World Environment Day is also called as a People Day. People Day. Therefore, we all have to join together with NGOs and public. They have to support in a great effort. And all the institutions should be modeled. like a green campus. We have to educate our students in the campus and training. What are the things should we use? Plastic also we have banned in our campus, and ours is a green campus. Therefore, there is already in a curriculum also we introduce as a compulsory subject as a environmental issues and how to solve those things. Even first year, second year, we are introduced. Therefore, in academics, we have to make compulsory these subjects, not only with the credit-based courses. Because many universities following this as a non-credit. Therefore, in our college, we are using a credit-based system. Then only they will take very seriously all these things. And by educating the students and also taking the public support and in collaboration with the NGOs, we can make successful, sir. The COVID also given a lesson for us how the pollution levels are gone down during last 2 months. To what level we are there. Then now we have to think very seriously. Now all has to join hands to bring back to the original level, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
I request Venkatesh Shekhar to please explain on steps taken by government and pollution control boards.
Pollution control board and awareness is a part and parcel of the system in the schools also, because the various rules that has been prescribed by the central government on the environmental issues clearly says that awareness is a basic subject of all the state pollution control boards to enforce. And for the last about 25 years, and the environmental awareness has become a real issue, and it has already been infiltrated into the ground level. Because the many awareness programs that has been taken up by the State Pollution Control Board to reach to the school through Parishara, Mitrashala and all other NGOs programs has really shown that the people knows about it, what is to be done and what is not to be done. The only issue we need to care here is that one should have a willpower to do whatever that we listen is going to be enforced at our home. So basically, we request all the public to cooperate right from the basic level, right from segregation of waste, and not to use the same type of whatever it is there, and simple like this basic issue, which we request all the public to cooperate. Then only this can be implemented successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now the question is, our hotspots are changing with time and our activities. Hotspots of biodiversity. I request Kumaraswamy to explain on this.
Hello. Yeah, this is really a spiritual question. Some says just by burning 1 ton of ghee, 1 ton of oxygen is released. That's what you are asking actually. Really, it requires the research. Research is required. But as you read our Indian philosophy, they will get the rain and all by doing the yagas and yagnas. So I don't know really, it directly generates the oxygen. Okay. Yeah. The next question, our hotspots are changing with time and our activities. It's definitely so actually. Hotspots are going to be changed because a lot of deforestation is taking place in Brazil, where it is in the equator area, a tropical area. So 90% of the biodiversity in the tropical area. So if there is a change, deforestation or industrialization, there is every chance of the greenhouse effect and global warming, which may change actually, yeah. But not in 1 or 2 years, maybe 5 years, 10 years like that. There is chances. Okay. The next is there any proof of vanishing sparrow due to mobile radiations? This is also a debatable because a lot of mobiles are used in the international airport, that Bangalore International Airport. But lot of sparrows are there in the international airport. So like that, we are actually destroyed the habitat of the sparrows, because sparrows are normally in the villages when there is a, not with modern houses. They make a house in the actually a grass house. So now no grass houses are there actually. All are actually roofs. Because of that, there may be a chances that sparrows may be migrated to the other places. So yeah, thank you. Next is there any, next is the coral reefs are vanishing due to the over exploitation. It is every chances anything over exploitation. There is always chances of the vanishing, though your question itself is the answer actually. Anything over exploitation, it is chances.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is, without any scientific studies, BBMP has imposed rainwater harvesting in every constructed sites, though there is no preciousness underground as granite or trap, etc. Shri Vikashekar, please.
Yeah, in this aspect, there is no scientific report also. Because the report is always supposed to be, and whatever the water that has been captured in their reserves can easily be infiltrated with rainwater harvesting is made. I don't think there is any change in the groundwater this thing, because groundwater may be exploited, but ultimately the water is that is collected in the rainwater will be infiltrated, increase the groundwater quantity. I don't think scientific study is required.